Right, y'all, we in the kitchen. Let's get ready to make some delicious meatloaf. All right, so we have our ground beef. We have a bell pepper, which this is my first time using a bell pepper in my meatloaf. I normally used garlic, but I didn't have any garlic. We had a bell pepper, so we're gonna use a bell pepper, which means you can use whatever ingredients I have here, or you can swap out and use what you like. I have a sweet onion. You can use white onion, yellow onion. I always use sweet. We have 2 eggs, some breadcrumbs. If you don't have breadcrumbs, get you some slices of bread and go ahead and put them in the oven. We got some Italian seasoning, which is really supposed to be thyme, but I didn't have any thyme, so we're going to use Italian. I have ground mustard. I also have some what's her name sauce. I have some Heinz chili sauce. I have some dry parsley flakes. You can use fresh parsley. We had dried. We used dried. I have marjoram. If you don't have that, you can use, I got black pepper, seasoned salt. What's the name of that stuff? Oregano. You can use oregano. And I have Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. You can use whatever barbecue sauce your heart desires. I love Sweet Baby Ray's. Okay. Get you a bowl and let's go ahead and assemble all of our ingredients. All right. So of course, first, I got me some gloves. I'm gonna put me on some gloves, and we are gonna start with opening up our ground beef and putting our ground beef into this bowl. Normally, you would chop your veggies up first and sweat them on the stove. Cook them a little bit until they're translucent, and then put them inside of your meat. Once you put your ground beef in the bowl, I totally skipped that step. I didn't feel like doing it. Listen, we have 5 kids we trying to feed, and we trying to feed them quick, okay? I didn't have time to sweat no veggies. I had kids to pick up before 6 o'clock. So we went ahead and put everything in this bowl. I put my ground beef in this bowl. I'm going to break this ground beef up just a little bit first to get it all, open and ready to receive all of my other ingredients that I'm going to put in this bowl. And then I'm going to chop this bell pepper and this onion up. We are not going to sweat it, but if you want to do right, you do right, and you go ahead and sweat them veggies before you put them in this bowl. But I promise you, it means nothing. It's neither here nor there, because the whole meatloaf has to go in the oven anyway, and it's going to cook regardless, okay? So if you want to save yourself some trouble, feel free to save yourself some trouble, my love. I promise nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know. So there's our ground beef. I'm going to go ahead and chop up my veggies, my bell pepper and my onion. Remember, I normally use garlic and not bell pepper, but I had a bell pepper, didn't have any garlic. If you have both, you can still use garlic, bell pepper, and onion. Hell, put some celery in it if you want to. Do whatever your heart desires, baby, is yours, okay? So in the bowl, we have our ground beef, we have our chopped bell pepper, we have our onion. Now, with the eggs, normally, crack your egg in a bowl, whisk it first, and then put it inside your ground beef. Listen, I told y'all, I don't want no extra dishes. I don't want no extra work. We finna put everything in this bowl at one time and mix it all up when we're done, okay? So I went ahead and put my 2 eggs. I'm going to get my little teaspoon, and I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of my seasoned salt, and I will have the recipe down in the description box below. I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of seasoned salt, okay? And we're going to get our next little seasoning, the black pepper. I'm going to use a teaspoon of black pepper. Now, listen. Honestly, season how your heart desire, because half of these needed a half a teaspoon. Some need a quarter teaspoon. I used this 1 teaspoon for every seasoning. If it needed a quarter, I used a quarter of the piece of the teaspoon and put it in there. Because if my heart said that's the quarter off the piece of that teaspoon, that was the quarter off the piece of that teaspoon. And everything came out perfectly fine. So we're going to go ahead and put us a half a teaspoon of the marjoram. As you can see, I went ahead and used my same teaspoon. Italian seasoning, we're going to put, let's see what it is. That look like a half a teaspoon right there too. We're going to go ahead and put that in there. But I'll put honestly, y'all, listen. All jokes aside, I will have the exact description in the, I will have the exact recipe in the description box below. I I will have what I normally use as well as what I did use in this video. Now for these parsley flakes, you can go ahead and use fresh parsley. Again, I didn't have any. I had dried. So I put 4 tablespoons of my dried parsley into my bowl. And so don't make it hard on yourself. Use what you got. Okay? And I promise you it will come out good. You will not be upset. All right? Sweet Baby Ray's. I love me some Sweet Baby Ray's. You can get whatever flavor Sweet Baby Ray's you want. This is just the one that I used. And what's her name sauce? Listen, that what's her name sauce gonna hit every time. Every time. I love sis. We're gonna put 2 tablespoons of her. We're gonna drop her in there quick. Shake her up real good and put her up in there. I put 2 tablespoons of her. Put however much your heart desires. And also, it also depends on, how much meat you have and how big of a batch you're cooking. So I use 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons. So for the Sweet Baby Ray's, I put a 1/4 cup of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Again, you can use whatever flavor you like. This is the one that I use because this is what I already had. This is what I always buy. This is literally what I always use anyway. So we're going to put that in there. Something about the flavor of that barbecue sauce that just makes stuff taste good to me. So we're going to go ahead and scoop all that in there because we need every drop. Don't be like me. Get you a silicone spoon and do right. All right? Don't be like me. Because now we got to take this glove off. And now we're gloveless on one hand. So we're going to go ahead and open up our sweet chili sauce. This is the one that I use. I keep saying sweet chili sauce. It's just chili sauce, Heinz chili sauce. But this is the one that I use. You can use whichever one your heart desires, whichever one you like the best. This is just the one that I've always used, and it has not steered me wrong. So I'm going to keep using it. And we're going to dump her up in there like that as well. Okay? And then we are going to use, I have my breadcrumbs. Again, like I said, if you do not have breadcrumbs, but you have a loaf of bread, go ahead and take you like 3 slices of bread, put them in the oven, let them get toasted, crunchy, and, like crouton style, and then crumble it up in the bowl, and you got you some breadcrumbs. But since I have the breadcrumbs, I'm going to go ahead and put a cup of breadcrumbs inside of my mix. And then you are going to want to put some milk in here as well. So I'm going to put 1/2 cup of whole milk inside of my mix as well. So again, the ingredients that I'm using, they are all well, I won't say they're all optional, like your eggs, breadcrumbs, all that stuff. That's not really optional. But as far as the flavors that I'm using, like the flavor of the barbecue sauce, the flavor of the chili sauce, or the brand of the chili sauce, all optional. It does not have to be the same brand, does not have to be the same flavor. Use whatever your heart desires. I did go ahead and put my 1/2 cup of milk inside of the bowl. And then I'm going to go ahead and get me some new gloves because that spoon was not going to cut it. I did use the spoon just to make sure I broke my egg up and mixed it in there, scrambled it in there real good. But I am going to get me some new gloves. I'm going to go ahead with my hand, mix this up really, really good. And then once I get this all mixed up, I'm going to come back and show you guys what it looks like on a pan. I'm not going to have a loaf pan. I don't have a loaf pan. So do not feel bad if you don't have a loaf pan. If you have a regular pan, use what you got. Okay? So this is how it looks once I put it on my sheet with my aluminum foil. I already have the glaze on top. For the glaze, I did use a cup of barbecue sauce, the same Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce that I put inside of the meat. You can use a different flavor for the glaze if you like, but that is the Sweet Baby Ray's that I used. I used a cup of it, or at least as much of a cup that I could get out of this bottle that I had left. And I used a 1/4 cup of the chili sauce. And then I use a 1/4 cup of ketchup. Now, if you don't want to use this type of glaze on top of your meat, you can also make you a gravy on the stove with some onions, do it old school. You don't have to use this glaze. I am going to bake it for 30 minutes first and then pull it out and put the rest of the glaze on top. And then once I do that, I will put it back in to bake for another 30 minutes or 45 minutes until I feel like it is done, with a total cook time of an hour to an hour and 15 minutes until I feel like it's cooked and ready to go. Again, you don't have to use this kind of glaze. You can go ahead and make you a gravy and just, layer it on top of your mashed potatoes or your rice, however you want to serve it, and pour your gravy and onions on top. It doesn't have to be this kind of glaze, but I do love the flavor that this glaze gives this meatloaf. And this is what it looked like when I took it out. This is a slice of the meatloaf with some mash.